Okay, now Unit 3 is made up of a number of units, a number of elements, all of which eventually will come together to make a complete unit. So we'll look at this one first, and that says we look at the learning objectives. And in this unit, there are 5 learning objectives. Most of the learning objectives only have 2 assessment criteria. But Unit 1, which we're going to do first, it's got 4. It could have actually been split into 2 sections, this, but they're both about the same thing, so they made it all one learning objective. So it's understanding the application of theories, principles, and models of learning in education and training. Now, what I've done with this document, I've put more or less what the outcomes should be, what the criteria are, and on this column here on the right-hand side, I put on suggested evidence, where you can get the evidence from. Yeah. There are a number of theorists, and sometimes it's easier to do some of your own research on the net. So if it mentioned a particular theorist on a subject, just put the subject in and the theorist's name, and some of the work will come to you, and you can actually make notes from that before you write your piece. Yeah. So we're looking at the first bit is to analyse theories, principles, and models of learning. Now, there's some information in Chapter 2 of the ebook Teaching and Learning, which you can find on the head of this on the VLE itself. But I've actually put some other stuff together on that other paper, this one. This one has a unit aim on, so you can have a read through that just to show what it's aiming to do. And again, it shows here it's a prerequisite for Unit 1. In other words, before you start the units, this is the best one to do first. Now again, it's got the learning outcomes here. Analyse theories, principles and models of learning. So then it looks at theories, principles and models. For example, procedural versus declarative. Anderson, skills development, Gagne, scaffolding learning, Bruner and Vygotsky. Knowing that, knowing how, Ryle. Inductive, Bruner versus deductive, Ausbel. There are a whole host of theorists on this subject, and it's worth looking at, not all of them perhaps, but some of the main ones that are different between the behavioural ones, constructivist versus formal and non-formal learning. So the thing to do is pick out, at this point I'll say Vygotsky is probably one of the best ones on. He's got a lot to say on a lot of subjects, and he's pretty good. But by all means, have a look at the other guys as well. And your analysis really needs to look at them and sort of say what you think of them, really. Yeah. And that's the first part, 1.1. The second part, 1.2, is explain ways which you think that those theories, or some of those theories and principles, could be applied to actual real-life learning and assessment. Because obviously, some of those we've looked at will be different stages of learning. Some will be early years, some will be school age level, and some will be higher education and college, where employers are involved in that sort of thing, where you've got apprenticeships running and that sort of program. So it's applied theories and principles, linking aspects of existing practice with the theories and developing the teacher's personal theories of learning. So the whole qualification really is about you and your situation. Yeah. So always keep that in mind when you're putting in your responses to any of the assessment criteria. So it's looking at theories of learning and development, competency-based programs, individual learning plans, product-focused or SMART targets, applied use of constructivist approaches, card sorts, graphic organisers, matching and labelling type activities, those sort of things which are done in early years. There are a number of ideas in this area, some of which are not that practical with various groups. So that's where your original analysis came in. But this is purely an explanation of why you think some of those could be used against others, perhaps. Now, 1.3 goes back to an analysis again, and this is looking at learning preferences, or learning styles, some people call it, yeah? So it's models of learning preferences. Honey and Mumford and Gardner's multiple intelligences, Coffield, critique of learning styles, learning preferences dependent on context, metacognition ability, to set explicit challenging goals, to identify strategies to reach these goals and to monitor and progress towards those goals. So these are models of learning preference because it depends on the learner that you've got. I mean, a lot of the time now we talk about inclusive teaching and learning, where different ability are in similar groups, and the teaching has got to be designed to actually meet the requirements of all the group, yeah, not just certain parts of it. So that's why different learning styles make a difference. So, can you still hear? Oh, good, okay. So basically, it's looking at how people learn, and lots and lots of different ways. I mentioned before that I left school at 15 with little or no qualifications because I hadn't been taught a lot of how to learn, because I found that I was a visual learner. So unless something's going on, there's an experiment going on, or somebody's got a piece of equipment on the table, or there's a video on, or something of that nature, I'm not learning. Some people are audio learners and can sit like you are now and listen to me droning on because we can't speak to each other tonight. And that way I don't learn. I just shut off. So there are lots and lots of methods, and some of these you can look at on here. I'll give you some background into those, yeah. And again, 1.4, explain how identifying and taking account of learners' individual learning preferences enables inclusive teaching and learning. And this is what I meant by when you put a lesson plan together for a particular subject, you've got to use different teaching approaches at different parts of the lesson, so that you're not leaving anybody out and people are not being sort of segregated. You do some work with hands-on, and you do some work where you're giving information. Some lessons don't give, are pure information giving lessons, and that's difficult sometimes for various learners. Now the other one is if you've got a group of different ability, then sometimes you've got to use different resources to help them. If you've got a learner, say, that's got a learning difficulty, such as a hearing problem or a visual problem, then you've got to use different resources with those learners to keep them within the group. So again, it's analysing the theories and principles of learning styles, really. So use of studies of learners, if you've got any experience of that yourself, you can use that as well. And examples of sort of digital or printed material that you use in your particular school. Yeah. One of the pieces I've got on here. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah, so I put on the e-book teaching and learnings on here. The amplification we're looking at. So you can look at learning objectives 1, 3, 4, and 5 on that. These are actually PowerPoint presentations. Yeah. So I open that one up, and we can look at save. Very slow loading tonight. Here we are. So it's Unit 3, Theories and Principles and Models of Education and Learning. So LO1, what are objectives? Consider the value of theories and principles. Research, summarise, present and discuss learning theories. Review, evaluate and reflect on how theoretical principles are demonstrated or can be demonstrated in practice. So at this point, most learners are going, theories are useful. They are pointers to assist us, yeah, but they don't work in every situation. And you should always remember that it's what's happening with you that's important, not particularly if it doesn't fit a particular theory. Don't worry about it. Principles and theories can guide us, yeah. They influence the choices we make. Theory precedes practice and therefore drives practice. We can respond better to the individual needs of learners. Popper 1992 described theories as nets cast to catch what we call the world and then rationalise and explain it to understand it and master it. So how do I identify which are the most significant theories? How do all the theories relate to each other? They don't always. Which books or articles do we choose to read in order to develop our knowledge of the field? And how will they help us to be more effective and teachers in the classroom? There are different theories and their applications in practice: behaviourist theory, constructivist theory, cognitive theory, humanist theory, and situated learning theory. Now, those can be split up into sections so that in a group, we'll jump tonight. In a group, you can have behaviourists, cognitivists, constructivists, humanists, and situated learning theorists. That makes your class up, yeah? And they can be put into lines like that they learn a certain way, yeah? And once you've learned what these titles are and how they actually learn, that then assists you to put your lesson plan together to encompass as many people as possible, yeah? So you provide a clear definition of the theory, consider theorists, their views, and then research and give examples of what the theory might look at in practice. This is what the unit's asking you to do, yeah? So it then goes on, behaviourists, yeah? Stimulus and response, reinforcement and reward. Learning is brought about by association between the responses and the reinforcement. So that's the behaviourist theory, yeah? Oops. And then it maintains a focus on the change in observable behaviours as manifestations of learning. Thus, the theory states that learning is the acquisition of new behaviour through conditioning. It's very much like they say with habits. If you can maintain a new habit, good habit that is, for 90 days, by conditioning, you will accept it, yeah? So how that's applied? So the teacher is at the centre of the experience and the learners are rewarded for correct responses, yeah? works with low and high level learning. Looking at Bloom's taxonomy is one of the theories. You can look at that as well. Okay. Now, this is a 32 slide PowerPoint, but it's got quite a lot of information on it, and it's no point in me going through that with you now. You're quite at liberty to do some directed study really on this before you then start to answer the process that you're going to go through. What I'll do is I've got somewhere. I'll just put that to one side a minute, and that, and that. I think it's this one. Now this front sheet that you can see now on the page, you can see that okay? Yeah. Good. This is that one you were looking at before on it. I've modified it now slightly, and when you send me some work in, I will put this at the head of your work, and when I've been through the work, I will mark it initially by review in Word. So when it comes to the end of a section, I put achieved good on here, yeah, because that's the response that this person has given to analyse theories, principles, and models of learning. So I've looked at a number of theories of the Anderson's procedural versus declarative knowledge of Gagne's skills development, and Lavie and Wegner's situated approaches to learning theories. So what he's done is actually look at a number of theories and then picks them out to do the analysis on. Yeah. So don't get overfaced with all those different ones. Just pick them out where they match mostly with your way of thinking. Yeah. And then goes on to explain and analyse what they are. Yeah. And say what they are. And I do and do not agree with this. So then you're actually putting the reason why you've looked at it, and your analysis is that it is useful, but not fully. And then I largely lean towards a more pedagogical approach to learning, and I quite like Gagne's skills development theory. So again, I put on achieved good, yeah, and that goes on Unit 2. I'm just giving you this as an example, as all the responses you give to the work is in a Word document like this, yeah. When it's finished, where it says good achieved, I will say yes, it's achieved here. It's on page 3, and I've written in my assessment of it. A good analysis produced from your research of the theories. This was followed by a well-explained description of the various applications of theory. Yeah, so that's why it's achieved, and all the way down that will follow. So you get that. This is your feedback. Yeah, and as I say, I'll institute this page or 2 pages above the work that you send me, and then all we do is we keep sending that same work backwards and forwards until it's complete. Yeah. What I would suggest that we do, because this is obviously a first start, and I can't get any feedback from you because I can't hear you. So I need to know if you've got any particular questions before we go any further. I'll open that. If you write in there, yeah. So if you've got a question for me, just put it in on there. Right. Okay, probably the best way of looking at these is to pick out Anderson and procedural versus declarative knowledge. If you do some research on Anderson and Gagny, skills development, and I've mentioned before, Vygotsky, you pick those three and do some research on all three of them, and that'll give you a very clear understanding of what they're about, yeah, and what they're trying to explain. Then it's asking you to do an analysis of them in terms of how those fit within the normal teaching experience, yeah. Are they relevant or are they remote from it, yeah? Would they fit well with what you do, or would they be outside of what you do? Would they not be relevant to what you do? So that's where your analysis comes in. You've got to look at it from your point of view, yeah. The rest of the units, as I said, are more practically based. In other words, it asks you about initial assessment. It will ask you about what can I say? It will ask you about individual learning plans. It will ask you about lesson plans and schemes of work. Yeah. Now, when you're actually in school teaching, you will have all these. Now, rather than explain what they all are, you can put a copy of one, an actual copy of one, not just a blank sheet, but one that's been done for a particular learner or student. Just take the name out, scrub the name out before you copy it, and then you can use that as your evidence, yeah. And that just explain what it is, rather than having to write a whole thing about what initial assessment is. You can give 2 examples of 2 of your learners, and then you're actually then able to just describe them rather than have to, you know, explain the whole thing. Is that okay? Or keep forgetting you can hear me. Yeah, when you've done your research on them, you need to write your piece, like that example I just showed you there. Yeah, where are we? Was it that one? Yeah. See, the person that's done this one has actually analysed theory, principles and models of learning. So put the heading up, and then I have looked at a number of theories, and I will be analysing Anderson's procedural, Gagne's skills development, and Lavie and Wender's situated approaches. Yeah. So what it's a her in this case actually. What she's done is she's looked at probably 6 or 7 of the theorists and thought, well, a lot of those don't really apply to me, but this follows pretty much how we work. And then what she's done then is written a piece, literally on Anderson's procedural versus declarative. Procedural is knowing how to do something, and then gone through that process, gone through Gagne's skills development of the 9 levels of learning, and then benefits to this are that educators can have a checklist to use when engaging with learners, and that each step looks at clear levels of communication, and this helps the teaching and learning process. It's looking at teaching as an exercise rather than a practical application. That's what you do next after that. When you've written your analysis, yeah, you then explain the theory, principles of learning can be applied to teaching. I would use aspects of Lavie and Wenger's I would apply this in the form of workshops. And then with Anderson's procedural, this could be taught as a two-part step. First to teach and learn the declarative part of study, and then information on how to fix an electrical problem, such as changing a fuse or in a plug. Yeah, so you're doing a written piece of work and then a practical piece of work. Yeah, and that's how those different theories fit into the learning process. Yeah. So the first stage for LO1 is to choose some theories from all those I've showed you on that other sheet. Yeah. Where we go? This one. Yeah. Got a whole bunch of guys on here. Yeah. So you can have I'll do some research onto those. In these cases, it's probably easier. You've got the book to read off the VLE as well, but also just Google any of them. Just put on Theories of Learning by Kotsky, Theories of Learning Anderson, Theories of Learning Ozibel, Freire. And the information on those guys and what they said and what they think about will actually come up for you to read and make some notes from. And then you can decide which 2 or 3 that you're going to look at and do an analysis on. Yeah. As soon as you've got some work for me to look at and you want some feedback, just send it to Learner Work. Yeah. That will come straight through to me. I will pick that up and I will do a feedback sheet on there with you and send that back to you. Is that okay? Super. So, have you got any more questions before we go, or do you think you'd be happy to start? Now, don't forget, you can also contact me by text if you need just a little bit of advice or anything of that nature. Just send me a text. Yeah, I'll pick that up and give it straight back. Okay. Anyway, thanks for attending, Kieran. Nice to have met you online first time, and I will speak to you again this time next week. Yeah. Yeah, anytime. Yeah, anytime. Text anytime. Yeah. Day or night. Okay, I will speak to you next week, and again, make a start. Once you've made a start and we've got it going, you'll see how it works, and you'll find it quite easy. Okay then, bye for now. I'll speak to you next week. Bye now.